Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Hardcover Hooligans podcast. My name is Danylo, and I am joined, as ever, as always, from now until the end of the cosmos, Mac. That's your name. That was your introduction. Yep. Now, I have a question for you.
Yeah, what's your question?
Now, if you were an extraterrestrial civilization and you were trying to pave the way for your arrival on another planet, what video game would you send them to play?
World of Warcraft or some other worst MMO of all time. That is revealed at the end of this section that maybe it's not an MMO. It could be like a single player game that everybody's logging into still, but I don't know.
But yes, we are. Why are we talking about video games? Well, because we are talking about the book, The Three-Body Problem, when now a hit Netflix TV show, as the paperback book cover loves to remind me and you and everyone.
Not my paperback, Danilo. My paperback is old.
You got a virgin Three-Body Problem paperback?
It is unmarred by television propaganda.
I love that I've had books where the TV show is on the way, but then it gets canceled. So
right, yeah,
it's just nothing. So yes, we were talking about The Three-Body Problem by Cixin Liu, I believe is how you say it. Now, disclaimer up front. We're going to be saying a lot of Chinese names very incorrectly. We're going to do our best. I looked this up.
I've tried really hard. I have also done that, but it is going to, because there's a when you read it, my brain automatically, for a while, I was pronouncing these names when I was reading it, and I was like, none of this has to be right. So about halfway through, I learned how you said all these characters' names. So we're trying really hard to pronounce the names correctly, but there may be, and there will be some slip-ups.
Yeah, I tried to practice some out loud before we started recording, and that went okay. So I guess we'll see.
Nice, that's good.
So you, like me, we've talked about this a little bit offline. When we decided to do this book, neither of us knew that much about it. I didn't even know there was a Netflix show. I didn't really either. I just knew the title. I'm like, oh, that's a famous sci-fi book that people like.
Yeah, I mean I didn't know. I've owned it for a long time, but I got it. God, I don't even know. I feel like I've had this book since it came out and was popular.
It came out 2004. I
thought it came out. I thought it came out in 2013. Was I super wrong?
I thought it came out in 2004. Let me check my copy here. It didn't come out in English until 2014.
Yeah, I've had it since then, but I've just never read it, and so. Oh, there is. Having said that, there is one thing I knew about this.
What is this thing that you knew?
That former United States President Barack Obama really enjoyed it.
I think that is where a majority of people first heard about this book. I know every time I saw Three-Body Problem, I'm like, oh, the one that Barack likes. Barack Obama liked this one, and they don't stop with the marketing that Obama liked this book.
Right, and it's different because it's so weird because I feel like I never hear about or know a lot about the Reese Witherspoon book club picks or the Oprah book club picks unless they're particularly I think there was a Ta-Nehisi Coates novel that was an Oprah book club pick that was really good, but otherwise I don't really hear of them a lot. But I feel like as soon as President Obama put this on the summer reading his summer reading list or whatever, I was I knew exactly what it was, and it's been in my mind.
Well, I also don't know anything else that's on Obama's summer reading list.
Me neither. So I don't know why it was this
one time.
Yeah.
It was in the middle of his second term. We thought the world couldn't get any better, and we were on the upswing, and how wrong we were.
Literally in the middle of his second term.
Yeah.
We were living large.
I think it's really funny that
we were playing Halo 4. And now
in the front cover, it lists all the awards this book won. It's winner of the Hugo Award for best novel, finalist for the Prometheus Award, and then it's selected by President Barack Obama for vacation reading.
Yeah.
Also, all things that are on the same level.
This is an insane vacation read. I I don't know if that's like just me and my proclivity for books, but a vacation read I would think is more like a Dan Brown,
Right.
or like
not the craziest thing you've ever read.
yeah, not the weirdest. But shouts out Barack Obama. I wonder if Michelle or Sasha or Malaya have read it and what they think now. Only one way to find out, listener. If you're Barack Obama or his kid or wife, text us. Yeah, text us.
So let's dive right into it. So we read the
it.
first half of this book, roughly part 1 and part 2, and this book is interesting.
It sure is.
I don't know what your initial impressions of it are. Do you want to share?
Well,
before
much
we
like
go into plot
The Dispossessed,
stuff?
this is no character drama.
Right.
I'll tell you that. This is a science fiction novel dealing with big ideas and interesting concepts, and dealing with them more through like science and reactions based on science, rather than like the characters' emotional reactions to anything that's not science related. It's sort of like this book reminds me a lot of Philip K. Dick's novels, where the difference being in Philip K. Dick's novels, those characters are like it is like none of the character. If this was a Philip K. Dick novel, the main character is not a scientist. The main character is like some down on his luck junkie or like police officer or something like that. But I like all the science, and I don't know anything about the validity. All I know is that the 3-body problem is a real thing, but I can't speak to like the scientific validity of their studies and their research. But I found all of that like incredibly compelling.
Yeah, this is like for me, maybe the first book on this podcast where like I'm maybe not smart enough to be able to talk about this like at length.
Yeah.
Like I'm familiar with like the concepts of, we'll get into it, the Big Bang and the microwave background, like stuff you get from watching like physics programming on PBS. Like I have that level of knowledge about it, but not anything super deep. So the 3-body problem is a math problem.
Yep.
It is about 3 objects, usually in space, and how they like rotate around each other and their orbits. And that is not clear at the beginning, but at the end becomes a major thing. So we start off the book. Do you have anything else to say before we dive into?
No. Let's dive in.
So this book takes place entirely, I think, in China.
So far, at least, in China.
And the beginning opens up during the Chinese Cultural Revolution, which was like a series of cultural purges, sort of started by Mao Zedong to consolidate power. So basically, he convinced a bunch of young people and students that capitalistic and bourgeois agents have infiltrated Chinese society and government, and it's up to everyone to purge those things, like old things, they like academic establishment things, anything that might come from the West, that sort of stuff. So that is and that surprise, surprise, resulted in a lot of violence as we open up this book. On one of these instances of the violence, the book starts with like almost an image of like this young woman, of these like, it's like a street fight in Beijing or something, and this young woman's like waving a red banner, and then someone shoots her and she like falls, and it's like supposed to be
lands
like
onto
image.
a spiky wall.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Fucked up.
It's really fucked up. But the main thrust of this first part, at least at the beginning, is the sort of like a show trial. They call it a struggle session, which was kind of funny. I'm sure that translates into something more sinister.
That's me.
In
I do
Chinese.
I do that every morning right before I got to go to work, man. I have my
whole
struggle
life's
session.
a struggle session. And the renowned physicist Yi Zhetai I believe is his name. And the way they do it is in China, their last name, like their family name, is first, and their like given name is second. So his last name is Yi or Yeah, and he is like has like this bronze crown on him, and his wife is like interrogating him and saying how like the stuff he's teaching is pro-capitalist because there's stuff that's like there's called like Newton's law, and Newton was a capitalist and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and she saw the writing on the wall because they're in similar fields, but she started like she wouldn't refer to it as like Newton's law. She would say like gravitational law, and
Right.
and she like changed their names to be more about the thing that it's related to.
Yeah, and then when the winds changed and her husband didn't sort of follow her, she turned against him, and his youngest daughter also turned against him, which comes up later. But the main character of this session is this section is his daughter Yi Wenjie, and she sort of follows after her father more, that she's going to sort of stick with her principles and not be swayed by the current reactionary tide in China.
Yeah.
So after the struggle session, her dad is like beaten to death and he dies. And she is left alone with her father's body, and something like breaks within her. And then it flashes forward to a couple years later where she is working in the mountains. Mac, do you want to talk about this next section?
Yeah, she works for like a logging company, which is not which the reason in the book she's like is working for the logging company is that they just happen to be cutting down a bunch of trees near the most mysterious like military base of all time.
Right.
And so she's working here at this logging company, and she's like quiet and a different person, and she doesn't really like get along with anybody, which, you know, makes sense. She watched her dad get beaten to death right in front of her. And she meets this journalist. Do you have his name, Danilo? I don't have his name.
I don't have his name.
It's fine. She meets this journalist, and the journalist is like, "Hey, what's going on is pretty messed up, huh? Like, I read this book from the United States. You should read this. You should read this book. You'd like it." And the book is about like how pesticide use is wrong, but when reads it, it like affects her so incredibly deeply that she's like, oh my god, this applied research, which is going to come back in a big way. Like the concept of applied versus theoretical research is like a huge theme that keeps returning through this book. But she's like, oh my god, this book really struck me to my core, and she helps this journalist like draft this letter that they're going to send to the like the new Chinese government, and they send out that letter. And I believe 3 years go by, or is it 3 months? Some amount of time passes.
Yeah.
And like the evil the cops, they're not cops. They're like the military,
the secret police. Yeah.
Yeah, the secret police. That's what I was looking for. They show up and are like, they're like, we got to institutionalize you because you wrote this letter, because the journalist threw under the bus when he got caught, so to save his skin. And the book is like, he actually became a famous person because of this, but nobody ever really knew who Ye Wenjie was. And it's like, oh, it's fucked up.
And something I want to flag, like the book is called Silent Spring, which is a very, famous book about, humans using from like the 60s, about humans using pesticides, and if it kills all the bugs, like the birds aren't going to have anything to eat, and so there's going to be a silent spring. And so Wenjie sort of sees like all the logging going on around her and being like, hey, if we like just take from the environment, like at some point it's going to have permanent effects. Like it's very short-sighted. And so part of the letter is like, hey, let's think about this a little bit more and not just cut down every single tree we see. And this sort of opens up a theme of like human impact on the planet and the environment and that sort of thing that sort of goes throughout the rest of the book as well.
Yeah.
And so she gets taken to prison. She gets offered sort of a get out of jail free card by just like sign a paper condemning her father, and she like won't do it. And like the person like interviewing her gets like really mad and leaves, and she eventually gets pulled out of this system and gets assigned to, drumroll please, that super spooky base that she worked in before, or worked near before.
Right.
And it's called Radar Peak, and that's because it's a mountain with a big radar dish on top, and they're doing spooky secret government experiments, and they're super high security and all that stuff.
Yeah, they have this big radar dish that, with the loggers see it come out, it'll like make a sunny day turn into a thunderstorm, or like kill a flock of birds. It does weird stuff.
Yeah, and like everyone's like, if people are too close, like their hair stands on end, so it's like some powerful beam or something's happening. So she gets assigned to Radar Peak, and I think that's where the section ends.
It is, yeah. She like one of the guys who rescued her, Yong is his name. He used to be one of her father's students, and so he's like the chief researcher here, and he says, you know, he lays it on the line and is like, hey, they're gonna rehabilitate you, probably super violently, because they're gonna find you guilty of something, but you can get out by doing this here. But he makes it very clear, like, once you join Radar Peak, you're never going to be able to leave, which ends up not being true. But
right,
she can't leave, and she's all in right away because she doesn't want to go back to that life, and now she can like do her astrophysics research that she was doing in college, and she can start doing that again instead of working, you know, being like a logger, which is something she never wanted to do, and as the previous chapter made very clear, she hated.
Right. Then we skip to part 2.
Yep.
And part 2 takes place in, it says 40 years later, so roughly the present day.
Yeah.
And our main character is a nanoscientist by the name of Wang. And I don't have his first name.
Wang Miao is, I think, his name.
Okay.
Miao.
And we get a lot of info here very quickly. He's like invited to a meeting by the government or the army.
Yeah.
And he like doesn't.
Both the cops and the army show up at his door and they're like, hey, you gotta join the special
meeting.
task force.
He's like, I can't today. It's like, okay, well then we're gonna have to reschedule because this whole meeting is about you.
Yeah.
And basically the cops and the army, so he goes to this meeting, and it's like the cops and the army, and also like the CIA, and also like the U.S. Army, and also like NATO are there,
right? Yeah,
to like pitch him this idea. And basically, what they ask him to do is that there's this organization, sort of mysterious, called the Frontiers of Science, and it's like I think an international coalition of like physicists who their aim is to like find what the boundary is of knowledge and science, like basically what's possible. And army,
that all sounds good on paper,
right? And the army, and why are the army and police interested in this? Because these scientists who join it keep committing suicide.
Yep, yes they do.
And also, it's implied that the army and police and everyone are like fighting some sort of war, even though it's peacetime, and Wang doesn't really know what to do with this.
Yeah, General Chong does not, or Chang. What's the general's name? Was I right about that?
That's I don't know. Hold on.
The general of he's not really in this book so far. He's only in
the
this
general.
one scene.
Of the
he's like the
Chinese
general
army.
of the, but he makes it very clear to Wong that like this battle, it's like if he signs up, if he's willing to be part, they call it like the battle command center. Like if he wants to sign up for this project, like it's gonna ruin his life. Like it's not, because he has this conversation and he's like, human beings have been pretty lucky throughout history. And Wong is like, are you sure? Like, what about both world wars? And he was like, yeah, could have probably been way worse. And he's like, okay. It's just very, there is something like deeply terrible happening or about to happen, and nobody is telling Wong.
Yeah, they call it like the battle room, and they keep talking about how they're at war. And Wong is like, what do you mean? He's like, it's
worse than you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, exactly. But my favorite character is there too.
Oh,
and
yeah.
His name, he's like a burly cop who, I don't remember his full name, but his nickname is Da Shi, which means like
that's
big
the only one I know,
because
is
that's
Da
his first
Shi.
name. and
That's what everybody calls him.
he has like a lot of lip, and he's always like giving back talk to these generals and like doing the wrong thing and basically getting on everyone's nerves, but everyone puts up with him because he's like really good at his job.
Yeah, he's like really perceptive and like a good interrogator. That like because Wong notices this throughout their meetings. He's like always noticing like little shifts about him. Like he notices the name he keys in on the list of like dead scientists is this like woman he saw at a research project thing like 2 years ago, and he notices that. But he's also he's our problematic king. Let's say he's also like a bully and like he works with the mafia and stuff like that. It's
he's
sweet.
like corrupt.
Cool.
He'll like torture people to get a confession. You know? But it's cute. It's fun and cute. You know, the way
it's cute and fun. He doesn't torture
him.
people in a book.
None of these people are real, so it's okay. And so Wong is gonna like not do this because this seems like a bad scene.
Understandable.
And Dasha is like, yeah, I bet you wouldn't, because you're like a weakling. You probably couldn't handle it. And the Wong is like, you know what? I am gonna do it now.
Yeah, it's so
and then
funny.
he
That's all it
decides
took.
he's gonna. That's all. It's literally all it took.
That's sort of what I mean when I'm like, this is not a character-driven book, because that doesn't make any sense. Like, Wong is an incredibly rational man. Does not make sense that he is like the Marty McFly chicken gene, where he'll do whatever you say if you call him a chicken. But sure, he does, because he needs to. You know, there needs to be a book that happens.
Yeah, I think the rest of this section, like the characters are all sort of pretty one note, except that I think the first section, is portrayed really well. Like in terms of her character, I thought that was really cool. But there's also not any sci-fi stuff happening, and our friend Cixin Liu has a ton of sci-fi stuff he wants to tell us. So
yes, he does.
We're going to be getting to that. The big thing that Wong learns is like that woman he worked with at the lab was the most recent person to commit suicide. She was like this brilliant young woman who ran this lab, and he was sort of in love with her.
Love at first sight.
But from afar.
But her real boyfriend is also in the war room.
Right.
He's there.
And she is the daughter of Ye Wenxie.
Yeah.
From part 1.
Yeah.
But basically her suicide note is like, physics isn't real. We can't know anything. Goodbye.
Yeah, which is scary. Scary note to leave if you're like a brilliant scientist and then die.
Right. So the rest of this section sort of exists on 3 different like planes. I guess I don't know how we want to go about talking about this next part.
I mean, we might just talk about it just sort of like generally. I don't really need to know if we go like in order.
Or like the details don't really matter, because there's some like physics things that come up and lay the backdrop, and then we just go down major plot points and then talk about the video game 3 Body,
which is the big
sort
part.
of the main chunk. Yeah.
But I think we should start with Ye Wenxie's backstory, because there's a part he goes to visit her and like help her like grieve and carrying groceries or whatever. But she's like being like weirdly coy and cute about like, you know, I used to work at Red Coast Base. So they're like, oh my God, what's that? Like that's like that crazy thing that some European scientist like wrote a book about and like did a whole expose on it. She's like, do you want me to tell you the real story? And so she goes on to tell him the real story, and essentially what it is was for a long time a whole lot of nothing, and then like the commissar who was hanging around the base let her in on the fact that what was really going on was that the radar dish was it was a weapon, and the goal of the weapon was to be able to disable spacecraft from an incredible distance away. And they were going to use that against like the American imperialists and the forces of NATO as they were building, you know, their armies up to ensure protection. Now, Yang, the other guy who's there, like the chief researcher, is like, no, like, why are you telling her this? Why are you telling her this? And as the reader, you're like, oh, it's because he's upset that they're spilling secrets. And then later, we find out that reaction is because the commissar is lying, and Yang knows that it's just going to be more trouble to be like, no, we lied about all that other stuff. Here's really what's going on.
Hey everyone, just so you know, we had some audio issues with the second half of this episode, which is why my audio sounds like crap. My power went out, so we recorded the second half later in the week, and there was a lot of noise outside my apartment. And then at the end, I realized I forgot to hit record on our main recording software, so I had to use our backup recordings. Mac's backup sounds great, but mine does not. So sorry about that. In short, I'm a mess, but Mac's a perfect angel boy. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the episode.
Okay. And we're back.
And we're back. My power went out
4 days ago.
So we have marinated on the stuff that we've talked about before, and we're back to.
And we're going to talk about a different. We're going to talk about a different book now.
The four body problem.
Whoa, the four. I was trying to think of something that's not a body. What's something funny that's not a body? Something funny that's not a body.
Four brain.
The four butt problem. The four butt problem. The three butt problem. How could three butts in the same room be a problem? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know. It's a problem for me. It's a problem. I can't get things done.
Hey, that's why we're the hardcover hooligans. You know, the hard butt lunatics.
Problem. Wow. The hard butt lunatics problem.
We're off to a rip-roaring start. Well, I believe where we left off in our adventures was I was talking about how the commissar was it appeared as if he was coming clean to but as she learns later in that very same chapter is that he wasn't coming clean. He was doing the opposite of coming clean, which is
lying,
coming dirty, lying. Lying
or coming dirty, I call it. I call it coming dirty sometimes. You're coming dirty to me,
honey. I've been coming dirty to you for years. And that what actually the radar peak is it's like a military installation. True. Mm-hmm. But what they're doing is trying to contact an extraterrestrial race, not one that they've found. They're just like shooting microwave radiation into the air and hoping it contacts some aliens.
And they really want to talk about communism with these aliens. Like, hey, bro, just so you know.
There's a very funny, you get to read their letters, and there's a very funny, their first letter is like really politically charged, and then it says, you get like the note, like the addendum that the editor wrote, and it is like, you cannot be writing stuff like this to the aliens. And then the follow-up letter is a lot more like professional and... Oh, that was very funny.
Yeah, writing hardcore communism to aliens is unprofessional.
Yeah. So then we flash forward in time back to when Wong is learning all about Wang. It's been 4 days. What is the main character's name?
Wong. I think
Wong.
It's spelled Wang, but I think it's a short A,
Wang.
so it's Wong.
But so he learns and he's like,
I have all the trucks in the world outside my apartment right now.
Oh my god! You know, this is all staying in. This is awesome.
There was a guy riding a lawnmower. There's trucks in the alley. The truck was backing up like right before we started recording. I was like, Jesus Christ!
All the trucks in the world. Hey, breaker! What do you guys do today? I hear them out there. They're trying to take something.
They're clanking.
They're clanking. They're doing something.
They're doing something.
Do you want to back up into Danylo's apartment over and over again? I do. I do want to do that. Yeah.
We should drive around the block a couple times and honk our horns.
You know what I think this is that we switched. Hopefully, audio wise, the listener would never be able to tell, but we've switched recording softwares, and this might be God's way of telling us we should never have done that. The power and the truck and the trucker and the Teamsters outside unionizing.
God and the Teamsters hate this podcast.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff.
All right, the trucks seem to have gone back to their dens, so I think we're good for now. And I just wanted to say before we moved on from that chapter where they're talking about contacting the aliens, it's presented like as a series of documents. Like, it's not like talking to Wong about it. she's like, let me tell you the story, and then the next chapter is like, here is a series of historical documents that have been unearthed, blah 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 blah, and it talks about the project of, they want, because like China wanted to be like, hey, if Europe and the U.S. and the capitalists are trying to contact aliens, they can't be the only voice to contact aliens. So it was also about like the future of technology, and like there's these small leaps and large leaps. So they're like, oh, it's important to put resources to this just in case.
Which is insane. That's an insane thing to put. I don't know if that, like, I am unaware of, like, I don't know if there's like, this is playing off of like a Chinese like urban legend or like something I've just never heard of. Because it's hilarious to me that they're like, well, I think I know our course of action here. It's to contact aliens.
Well, I sort of think like, well, you think about like all the stuff the U.S. military is up to. Like, there's no way there's not stuff we don't know about. Or like, there might be a city in the center of the earth, and Joe Biden's like, we gotta check it out. We're gonna spend $4 trillion checking it out just in case.
Just in case, because we need that new metal that's in that city. The nanomaterial that's gonna end the world, maybe. And that brings us rocketing back to the present timeline of the 3-body problem. So we jumped ahead to talk about the past, but now we're going to talk about the present. And in order to talk about the present, we have to go back to the past. So our plucky scientific protagonist, he's having an interesting problem with his eyes. Danylo, do you want to talk about this guy's eyesight?
Well, first of all, he's also, all of a sudden, he's an amateur photographer. And we're like, why are we reading this? He just joined the creepiest organization ever where you commit suicide. And he's like, I've gotta go take some photos because I love photos. And he goes around and takes a bunch of photos, and I think he's like starts developing them, and he like sees a series of numbers in the corner, and he's like, oh, this is weird. My camera's not like new enough to where they put the date, and besides, that's not the date, it's just random numbers.
This is like a very classic, like, I would know there's something weird right away. Like, if I was taking pictures and scary numbers were like, and I'm like, oh, this has never happened, but he's like, no, there's probably something normal going on.
We can figure this out.
I guess he's a scientist and I drink Diet Coke, so. This is an ad for the video watcher. You get to see my dirty dresser, and that's a pack of cigarettes right there.
But it's like, now we're going to run a little experiment here. I guess he at some point determines, he's like, it keeps getting smaller. He takes like a bunch of photos and develops them.
Counting
and his
down.
wife and kid are like, it's time for dinner.
He's the worst dad and husband ever.
He is furiously developing film photographs while dinner's on the table.
In his he went into his dark room. It's like a whole room in his house that he's dedicated to his shitty photography. But that's actually not shitty, actually. He has like his own art installation.
And he's like, my wife doesn't get this. She really doesn't understand what I do or why. And
which is like, you're madly developing film and screaming about numbers.
But he determines it's a countdown to something. He doesn't know what. And it is visible only to him. So he like has his wife and kid take some photos, and the photos they take, the little countdown doesn't appear. But the photos he takes, the countdown does appear. And he's like, oh boy, I'm going crazy. And his wife's like, are you okay? Are you sick? And I don't remember what happens next. I think they just like have dinner and go to sleep. And he's very stressed. And he wakes up, and there's just a countdown in the middle of his vision now. And no matter where he looks outside, he looks inside, he closes his eyes, there's a big countdown. And he goes to like the optometrist, and
he's like, you're tired. You're probably just tired.
He's like, oh, there's swimmers, you see like little things. It's like,
yeah, and he's like, are swimmers numbers? Can they be numbers that like a clock that is constantly counting down? And the doctor's like, well, no.
What if hypothetically I was seeing a countdown at all times in very crisp, clear numbers? And he's like,
yeah, he's
stressed at work.
And he's like, yeah, I am.
And Wong's like, all right, this was a bad idea. He's not going to help me. It's like, yeah, I know.
So he calls one of the members of the Frontiers of Science. I don't know how he knows her.
She's sort of like the leader, like his contact. Her name is Shen Yufei.
But was she at the meeting? Or no, her husband was at the meeting. His like her like weird.
Oh no, I think she called him initially to be like, "Hey, you should join," and then he was like gonna say no, and then the army was like, "Please, please join."
That's right.
Please
They
join.
like call him at the table that they're at, where they're like, "You should join." I forgot.
And the general's like off screen nodding, like, "Yes, say yes,
Yeah.
say yes."
So he calls Shen Yufei, and he's like, "This countdown's pretty crazy, huh?" And she like doesn't see it, but she knows about it, and she's like very
really
cryptic,
coy.
and she just like hangs up the phone. We learn later, like, I have never been more confident instantly that somebody's an alien in my whole life. In my whole life, never have I been more confident.
I don't think she's an alien.
Yes, she is.
Oh,
when they show up and kill her, they're like, "We have this recording," or like they left this letter, or he's like, "I overheard them talking," and they're like, "Our Lord is coming to this planet soon." Like they literally like.
Oh, I interpreted that as like they're humans who they're like just humans who want the aliens to be there.
Oh, and you think they're like a cult?
I think they're like a cult.
Oh,
that's
I thought
my
they were
interpretation.
Like shape-shifting aliens.
Oh well, I guess we don't know.
I don't know. I don't
know
actually know. But I mean,
they can deflate and reinflate based on water, but we're gonna get to that. That might sound crazy, but
yeah. But he meets this weird. He goes to this weird lady's house and meets her even weirder husband, and her husband's like, "Yeah, she's upstairs. She'll be down in a little bit." And he like follows this guy up the stairs and goes into her room, and she's playing a VR MMO called Three Body. She's playing a browser-based VR MMO called Three Body,
and she has like a suit on. And she's like,
VR
just give me a
suits.
second. And she like logs off and takes off the suit somehow. I don't know. It's super fat. Who cares? There's a suit. And Wong like looks at the browser, and the web address is http://www.3body.net.
Yeah. So she's playing some mysterious game, and he might actually remark on this later, but I think it's a very funny remark where he's like, he's like, she's not a gamer at all. Like, what the hell's going on? It's like that's so funny. It's like if your professor, like you had like a mathematics professor who was like very like awkward and, just cared about math and was like, you wouldn't go to this person with like a personal problem, and then you went over to their house and they're just like they're just like grinding alt accounts in World of Warcraft constantly.
He quickly closes all the windows. It's like, you're having an issue, some sort of countdown in your eyes.
Some sort of countdown. You're having a countdown-esque eye issue, perhaps.
It's also funny because the only reason he looks at the browser name is because he remembers that.
Oh yeah,
like,
he has explicit instruction to do just that.
The detective was like sort of joking. He's like, so make sure you memorize any like phone numbers and email addresses and websites you see, and that's why he looks at it just randomly.
Thank God he does.
I know,
because
right?
that's the whole book. But when he leaves, a man shows up.
Oh, she tells him nothing.
Yeah,
right. She tells him like, why don't you just stop your research and see what happens?
Oh, that's right. Because he's researching, like, it's only mentioned like one time, but he's researching like the strongest material ever created. It's like this nano material that even like atom-sized amount of it in a line can like cut through any material. Like he's creating like a super weapon pretty much. So it's no surprise thematically that when he does research on this super weapon, the countdown to what I am assuming is like his death or like the end of the world or something is happening. I don't know.
We still don't really know
this is important because the countdown disappears when he's like taking the pictures. And then when he sees it in his eyes, like the time has elapsed. Like it doesn't pause. Like it's still counting down.
It keeps going. It's counting down to some definite point in the future. But Shen Yufei tells him nothing, and then so he leaves.
And he leaves, and on the way out, he runs into his name is Pan Han. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's her.
The eco. Well, he's like an eco.
Yeah.
He's like started like a commune. They abandoned technology. he's like started like the Ted Kaczynski like ultimate hangout zone. Like they're like we've abandoned all technology and the ways of the modern world, and like there's no math and no science, and it's just like us helping each other out. And there's like a couple of these communes, and they're all super successful and super popular.
Yeah.
Danilo, which is why I was like, oh, he also has to be an alien, because
I see.
they keep talking about like their lord, and I would have assumed that he would be the leader, but he says, because that's what I thought it was. I was like, a cult, but then he says our lord, and so I'm like, oh no, because this guy would be the leader of the cult. He's he's got that sort of air about him. But anyway, he's like, I gotta talk to Shen Yufei. Is she in? And Wong overhears this conversation, and then
they're like angry at each other for some reason.
And then he leaves, and then the narratorial voice is like, Shen Yufei did not let him into their house.
But the next day, Wong goes to work, and he stops the research just sort of to see what happens. Like some machine needed repair, and he's like, okay, fine, we'll stop.
Yeah,
and then
he shows up, and there's like a nerdy scientist there who's like, oh, hey, did you come to shut down the project today? Oh, please say yes so we can all go home.
There's all the information like, so this machine has been on the fritz for a while, and like we could shut it down, but it'd take a couple days to get running. And then they've been this guy's been nagging me to turn it off so we can fix it, but I won't because we're almost done. But it also seems like it wouldn't ruin the research if they turned it off.
I don't understand the science here, but they turn it off and it's whatever. And then the countdown goes away.
Yeah, so whoever was doing the countdown was very worried about Wong's nanomaterials research.
And then we get to the real meat and potatoes, I feel like, of this novel. So Wong Miao, our plucky, nerdy protagonist, he goes home, and at the lab, because he doesn't own a VR suit, and you need a VR suit to play the computer game. At the lab,
the browser,
he goes to the
Flash game from 2007 or whenever this book was published.
So he goes and he logs on to 3body.com or whatever, and he puts on his suit.
Addictinggames.com.
Armorgames.com.
I need a meta quest to play addictinggames.com.
And Oculus 2 to go on Newgrounds and watch Flash pornography. So he logs on and he like makes an account, and it's like very video gamey. Like there's like literally an opening cutscene where like he logs on and then like two big things crash into the world, and then like the world blows up and it says like 3body and like log in, and so he logs in or whatever. And he's just like a dude. Okay, so this is actually important. So he gives the name to mean Hiren, which is like a deity of China, like,
oh yeah, that's like his username.
And it's important because when he changes usernames, also the time of the game changes, and it's like correlated.
Yeah.
So he gives like a name. It'd be like if you logged into a game and you made your name Poseidon, the whole game would be Greek themed. So when he puts in this name, it's all like ancient China, like dynastic themed.
But it's like not quite right.
It's not quite right. Yeah, accurate. The timing is different. So he meets like various kings who shouldn't be around and whatever.
Yeah, so yeah, this is a browser-based open world physics game.
Yeah.
It's like Civ. It's like if Civ 5 was VR, but you could do it in like Microsoft Edge.
And you were doing it from the perspective like eye level on the boots on the ground. Like you're playing Confucius in Civ 5. And the graphics look like real life. And it's 2004. So he meets this ancient Chinese king, and he meets his like follower whose username is I don't remember the king's name, but it's like literally his username is follower of the king, and all he does is like follow this guy around. And I don't
understand who's like an NPC or who.
Yeah, I don't either.
Because I think the only characters, only like the player character is the player character. But they talk about it as like it's an MMO.
Right,
like,
but there's
you're totally right.
Different for everyone. But there's a moment later when like, okay, but he talks to somebody, and then that like person in the game mentions like something in real life, or they make some offhanded like comment about like, oh no, we like hang out in the real world too, and then we talk about this in here.
I think
And then later at the cafe, the spoilers for later, but Pawn is like, good, I see you are all enjoying our single player narrative experience. And it's like, okay,
Right.
but which one is it? I'm confused.
Or like, do they
or is it both?
They all have sort of a similar experience, but then like you said, if you change your name, it like
the whole fucking game changes.
It's kind of weird. I think partially it's meant to be weird, but it's also partially like you don't know how this thing could exist. But partially, it's the author wanted to have this happen, so he's having it happen in internet browser.
Yeah, and I'm not. So this book was published in 2004. Is that right?
Yeah, originally in China.
MMOs were like big at the time, and just about 2004 is the year World of Warcraft came out. So like, but there were MMOs that existed before, but they were about to reach like a fever pitch of popularity. So it's not surprising to me that this, like, a lot of this book takes place in like a weird sort of MMO hybrid, which is a fun, I don't know.
That's a cool
idea. I feel like you
yeah.
don't really see this a ton outside of like anime, like Sword Art Online or whatever. But
well, and you can like, it's implied as we go on that this game has something to do with these aliens. Well, not implied, it's pretty much directly said, but that is a cool idea. Like, we don't know in what way or how or what its function exactly is.
Because the main Wong is like,
first this game doesn't like.
Oh, I guess you're right.
Can you play this game?
Right. So what the game is
it's not
you
a really
exist.
Game.
The game. The game is the 3-body problem is happening.
Yes.
To you right now,
on a planet,
and you need to figure out how to stop it.
So there's a variety of chapters. I don't know if it really makes a whole ton of sense to talk about in detail each chapter in the game. But he's like various sessions of the game throughout, and we'll just talk about them all at once.
Now, just because we're not talking about going into depth on them, they're all very good and very interesting.
It's
just
very
like
cool, and
we don't need to talk about
really cool.
He hangs out with like Isaac Newton, and Isaac Newton's like an asshole. Like, we don't need to talk about that. Like, that's not the part I'm interested in.
From China, but he's like not exactly right for the period. And,
right.
But the general idea is that like 3-body, this game, is that you're on this planet and there's a civilization that is trying to like establish itself, and there's like a king and sort of like a king's assistant or like ambassador or something, and they're trying to figure out like, how do we keep building civilization, because their like solar star system is super unstable and they don't know why. So they were.
Oh, I guess it's true. They don't know it's the 3-body problem.
And the game eventually is like the player character figuring out that it is the 3-body problem
and unsolvable.
Because like he's put in this world, and it's like for like 2 days it's really cold, and then for like 2 weeks it's really hot, and then like for 1 month it's perfect, and then like it gets super hot that everything else burns up.
And it's always perfect when there's if you see 2 shooting stars in the sky, then you know you're in, they're called stable eras, so where everything's fine and like the plants can grow and all this stuff. And if you only see 1 or none, then it's a chaotic era. So it's like weather is crazy and shit's all fucked up.
And the stable era is like the planet or the landscape is habitable for like civilization to be able to, like, they can farm, they can build buildings, they can like be outside. And chaotic eras is like day to day or week to week. You don't know what it's gonna be. So the whole point of the game, the king is like, hey, we're trying to get people who can predict when these stable eras are gonna be, so that we can, like, if we know it's gonna be 2 years or 1,000 years or like 200 years, we can like start building civilization. And how will you build civilization?
Well, the king is like the one that is like, that's the player character. Like the king, because when the king like comes back in different forms, I guess in this like VR simulation, like all the characters you play have your eyes, because like Wong is like, oh, I recognize the eyes even though it's a different person.
Yeah, I don't quite understand.
Or like that's what I got from that, or felt like that, but But sorry to interrupt you. What were you
I was
saying?
gonna say, yes. So there's, and like they're human, but not quite in the sort of like fantasy. Like the only people who are like conscious the full time through the chaotic era are like the king and like his helpers, and the rest of humanity is dehydrated. And so in this type of human can like be dehydrated in the sun, and then they can like they don't need like food or water or anything through these chaotic eras. And so when there's a stable era and like work needs to begin on civilization, the king is all like, rehydrate.
Yeah, they literally run through the streets like Paul Revere shouting, rehydrate.
And like the humans, like the dried up humans, are taken out and soaked in water, and they pop up, and then they start farming, and it's very weird. And I want to talk about earlier. They talk about this physics or like philosophy concept called the shooter and the farmer, and I thought this was really
like
cool
this.
and also creepy and unsettling.
Yeah,
it's basically the philosophical problem of you literally can't know the future based on the past. Like they talk about the shooter is like this thought experiment where you have a civilization that's entirely on like a 2D plane, like on a target, like a bullseye target, and a person shooting a gun is like the god or the deity, and the god the person shooting just decides like, hey, just for funsies, I'm gonna shoot bullets through this bullseye every 10 centimeters. If you're a civilization that you don't know that there's this shooter or anything, you're like, yes, there's a rule of the universe that a hole appears every 10 centimeters. But it's not based on a law of the universe. It's just this random force has decided.
He could stop at any time.
He could stop at any time or shoot something else or whatever.
Right.
And the farmer, the parable of the farmer is... do you remember this one super well? It's like like the civilization of turkeys is like, oh, the farmer comes and feeds us every day at 11 a.m. And that's the turkey scientist is like, it is a law of the universe that the farmer comes every day at 11 a.m. And then Thanksgiving comes along, and at 11 a.m. they all get wiped out.
Yeah. Which the farmer is very close to like what's happening is like the more close philosophical idea to what's happening in the game. And like every time it seems like the characters in the game or maybe other players or whatever are close to figuring it out, they all get wiped out.
Right, it's based on some eventuality they didn't.
Because the turkeys, because it's also random for the turkeys because they don't understand Thanksgiving. Like
they don't understand like the true rules of the universe, or like
they think they understand it.
What they interpret as a rule of the universe is really just arbitrary.
Because it's supposed to be applied to physics. Because the observable rule of the universe is we get fed every day.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not based on anything. That's just based on that they're
based
being fed every day.
Data.
There's no scientific rule demanding that they're fed every day, and so they're like, it's sort of like a creepy like, oh, what if our scientific rules are wrong and we just like have been lucky so far?
Or we've observed consistency and it's predicted everything so far, but like, is there something behind that consistency that maybe is arbitrary and could stop at any point? And wipe out humanity.
Like the shooter, him shooting the hole every 10 centimeters might be 10 billion years for the civilization every time, or whatever. But so it seems like an observable rule of the universe, but it's really not. Yeah, it's interesting.
It is interesting. So that's sort of the idea behind this video game: is they think they can predict things, and then something happens that it turns into a chaotic era. So all these different scenes, like they get closer and closer, and at some point, Wong figures out, like, oh, it's because there's 3 suns. Like, this is why I can't predict anything.
Shouts out.
Yeah. And then next time he logs in, he's like, you've gotten to level 2.
Yeah, it's cool.
So the first step is figuring out that, like, oh, there's 3 suns, And the next step is, like, solving the 3-body problem. Like, can he predict it? And he, like, tries, but then this is, like, the whole, like, 3-star syzygy or whatever.
Yeah, the trisolar syzygy.
The trisolar syzygy. And it's like he's trying to use past data and current math to figure it out. But something like the 3 stars line up randomly and totally burn and destroy everything. So the next civilization that comes along doesn't know that that's possible because the event that they didn't know was possible is what wiped out all the knowledge.
Yeah.
Which is very cool. There's also a chapter where they make a human computer. I don't know if you want to talk about this, Mac.
Yeah, so it's like his third time playing the game, I think, and he switches his name to Copernicus, and so everything is like Europe themed, and so him and Isaac Newton and another guy, I don't remember, they make a human computer, and it's like designed to compute data quickly. It still takes a year of like, oh, okay, so sometimes like the game time just speeds up. It's like if you ever like had to wait in like a RPG like Fallout or whatever, like The Witcher 3, you're just like, well, the quest thing says wait a day, so you just like go to the wait tab and it's like 24, you make it 24 hours later. So and
or
that's like what
Stardew
happens.
Valley, like every day.
Yeah,
It's
exactly,
like,
exactly,
20
exactly.
minutes or whatever.
So time like goes by really fast for over a year. And when I say human computer, I don't mean like it's like a body horror thing. It's like
Every person is like a switch, a 0 or a 1.
Which then which then lets the other person like behind them watching them know what to do, which so on and so forth.
And they organize like many millions of people this way.
There's like 30 million people.
And they're like, oh, this is the software, and this is the hardware, and there's these guys on horses that are like the relays.
It's sort of
running
silly,
info
but
from one thing to another. It's funny. It is silly because like it could be possible because that's how computers work, you know. But it's just an interesting thought experiment.
It is, but maybe I'm just stupid. I don't get how it's computing the data. Like I sort of get it, but
I think
I'm not
it's sort
like
of pointing out like that is the mystery of a computer. Like it's so complex because like each person is like a thing.
I guess
that's
I don't know how
0
computers
or a
really
1.
work either.
Yeah, I don't know. And each little
that's true. That's a
chip
good point.
is just
That's a good
doing
point.
0s and 1s, and so like theoretically with enough input, you know, with enough, I don't know, but
yeah. And this is another moment. He's talking to one of the people he's doing the thing with, and he's like, yeah, we could just try to make like a human computer. And then Isaac Newton or whatever, he's like, a computer? What is that? And Wong is like getting annoyed that this guy's like role playing. And he's like, it's stuff from my world. But then, like, that's the first time where Wong is like, wait a minute, are they all like NPCs in this game and not? So it's very.
I always
don't
thought
understand.
they were NPCs.
I don't understand.
But they like, I think this is the trisolar syzygy. Yeah, this is what they like calculate and like, oh, the stable era will exist for forever because they basically used all the past data. So like Wong came up with these formulas. He's like, okay, you're all in the 3-body problem. Here's a bunch of formulas. We're basically going to create an algorithm and use this giant human computer to feed all the data we know into it, and then it can calculate it. But then the trisolar syzygy happens, and it's like, oh, we don't have all the data because the previous civilization from when we started collecting data was totally wiped out by trisolar syzygy.
And there's like, it's like a persistent world, so as we learn later, there used to be a whole solar system, but like it's not like reloading a save. It's like the civilization restarts, but the world remains. So if like hypothetically they got to an age where they like fired a nuke at the world, there'd still be radiation when the next civilization popped up.
Right, and at the end of every time like the civilization gets destroyed, the game is like, civilization number 136 has been destroyed. It made it to the 1700s or whatever. Please join us next time on 3-Body Problem. It's also like, you know, you can't play multiple times in a row. Like you're done for the day after.
Yeah.
Level,
You get
so,
yeah. It is weird.
But at some point, Wong, like after that trisolar syzygy, I think he like gets a notification on. He like gets an email.
Yeah.
And is like, hey, you're good at this game. Do you want to do like an in-person meetup in your city?
Well, he gets a call that's like, hey, I'm one of the developers of the game. Even though like this is like a huge deal because he couldn't find any information about who made this game or just that it existed. And so they're like, yeah, we need to record all of your personal information. Anybody who's made it to level 2, we record all your personal information. And so like he gives them their personal information, and he's like, "Cool, can I ask any more questions?" And he's like, "No, but you can come to this meetup." And so he goes to a meetup with a bunch of three-body nerds.
Yeah, and Pan Han is there.
He's not just there; he is leading.
He's leading it, and he's like, "So, how would you all feel if a bunch of aliens came to Earth and took us over? Would that be
it's
chill?"
sort of like he doesn't exactly say this, but he's like, what if, hypothetically speaking, a bunch of aliens made a computer game to try to see if you could solve the problem that they were having in their real solar system? How would you feel about that? And also, I murdered this guy's wife, and because this is outside of the game. There's like a whole detective cop story going on when he's not playing the game, and
well, at some point, Shen
murder
Yufei
suspect.
is like, Wong calls Shen Yufei. He's like, "What's going on?" And Shen's like, "Look at the cosmic microwave background," and he goes to like get some goggles, and then like the universe flickers for him, and so it sort of feels like the cosmic microwave background is like the evidence of the Big Bang. It's like a big constant in the universe, and so the fact that like it got changed just for him is like incredibly unsettling. Like, is someone else in control? Is something else in control of everything that humans know about physics, etc., etc.?
And I feel like I don't know if this is obvious, like, and I don't know if this is right, but like it's also a simulation in real life, right? Is that not what's happening?
It didn't occur to me that might be a possibility, but as we're talking about it, it's like, oh, is this the game that they're in? And like, is it like a Matrix thing where like they're doing science in the Matrix so that the aliens can solve their problem?
That's sort of what it feels like.
Yeah. But also we don't know.
We don't know. We've only read half the book.
Don't know. But yeah, Pan Han is like, what if these aliens took over? He calls them the... So basically he says, so Three Body is real. You're playing a non-fiction video game. And the aliens are called Tri-Solarans because they come from a world with three suns. Hence, the Three Body problem. And during this meeting, there's like a couple different groups that form. Some people are like, no, I don't want that to happen. Or some people are like, yeah, humanity's so fucked. We need someone to come in and be in charge. And it's a little cheesy and forced, but like, okay, I guess people like that would exist. Another part of this, I think this book is, then they mention it. They call it contact, like as symbol. They talk about alien contact and how like, oh, it wouldn't be unifying for the human race, actually. It would be incredibly divisive. It would, like, further divide people, which, might feel like a hard sell in a pre-COVID world.
Yeah.
In a post-COVID world, I'm like, yep, humanity's not going to be unified by some external force.
No, which is that is an interesting, I mean, it's like a sad concept to like toy around with, but it's fair. It's a fair what's the word I'm looking for? Thing to surmise from like, I'm not actually sure the aliens being around. I think the aliens coming would be the worst possible thing that could happen. And not because like they're gonna invade. It's like we tear each other apart.
Right. So he does this meeting, and then I think at some point he goes to Shen Yufei's, and she's been shot in the head.
Yeah.
By I think Pan Han. I think it's implied it's him. Like
it is implied it's him.
Yeah, at some point, and then Wong, to relax and decompress from the murder he just witnessed, he boots up Three Body one more time. Mac? Do you want to explain this last scene before we?
Yeah. Can you
finish this section?
Can you remind me, like, what is the reason the game skips ahead? Like, he logs in and it's like urgent, like the game is going to shut down. We're going to show you the last scene.
Yeah. I think that's it. He just logs in.
It's just like mysterious. So he logs in and then gets like a different screen this time and is like, "Hey, Three Body is shutting." It's like if you logged on to like fucking World of Warcraft and they're like, "So we're shutting down. So we're gonna show you an unreleased final cut." Yeah, an unreleased final cutscene from the last expansion we're never ever actually gonna release. And he's like, "Okay, I guess." And so it jumps forward like hundreds of years into the. Oh, hang on, wait. Before this happens, he logs on and it's like the information age, and people are like, Copernicus, where the hell have you been? And he's like, Shen Yufei's husband has solved the three-body problem, or at least he thinks he has. Like, he has all this data. And he's like, oh, I brought the data to solve the three-body problem. And they're all like, no, you can't. You can't. We've tried it. And he says, like, the data that he's brought, they're like, we've already tried that. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And he's like, why does the planet look so different? And he's like, well, remember that trisolar syzygy? It destroyed the whole fucking planet and split it in half into two different halves. And so now there's, like, we're half a planet and the other people are half a planet, and it's become like it's become a moon of our planet. And he's like, well, I guess we might as well tell you everything. And then he's like, there used to be 11 other planets in this solar system, but they've all been destroyed. And so all the people are like, what's the fucking point of trying to figure any of this out? And they build this like sad pendulum, like as a monument to the Trisolaran Empire. And he's like, oh, that was really sad. And then the next time he logs in, it's like, three bodies shutting down. Here's the last cutscene. And the last cutscene is the Trisolarans have figured out that the solving the three-body problem means leaving their solar system.
Yeah, so they say that, like, solving this problem is impossible to solve, so we are going to leave and try to find a new planet.
Which, I mean, uh-oh.
I wonder where they're going.
Panhan, it's important when he says like the stuff about the aliens, and he's like, yeah, aliens are real, and they rehydrate and dehydrate. Yeah. Like, that's the real thing.
Oh yeah, and he's like, and also their brains work faster, so that human computer actually happened and could work. It would still be slow, but not as slow as people. And everyone's like,
okay, whatever.
Great.
And it's funny, like, the other three-body gamers are like, there's like a poet laureate and like the head of an electronics company and like a mechanic, and it's a motley crew of weirdos.
Right.
And not all of them are pro-alien. Some of them get kicked out. And when they get kicked out, they're told, like, your account will be deleted. You can never play Three-Body Problem ever again.
So only the pro-alien people are, like, in this group. And after that final scene plays, they're like, so we're going to have another meetup. And this time, the Trisolarans are going to be there.
Yeah.
Whoa. And that's where the section ends.
Yep. Pretty cool.
It's a pretty cool book. I ripped through it. It is quite enjoyable.
It's also short. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if that's just part of the translation, but like my copy, like the font is big.
Yep.
And there's like not a lot of words on the page, and it moves very quick because there's no like it doesn't languish, and like we didn't have to learn about how a character put on the V suit. They just put it on.
There's a V suit, and you type in the web address, and you can play it. Yep. And it's a first person, and the graphics are amazing.
Browser-based first-person
that's the funniest part
game
of this could never work in any way.
Browser-based.
Unless like the unless it is a simulation, and then like all it's just the alien servers are just like running,
like
this,
able
this
to
game.
run it because it's just in the game
they can just
anyway.
Make
it's like
anything
no extra
happen.
Power, right?
So Mac, do you want to give your sort of final thoughts on this first half of the book? Maybe what do you think will happen next? What do you think's going on? I know we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, my called shot is the whole thing is a simulation Matrix style. Either that or like the Trisolarans have figured out how to control the universe, like almost via like what would essentially boil down to space magic.
Right.
That's like, my other.
Yeah, that was sort of my interpretation, is like they've somehow hijacked physics and are able to like
they can
make
change
things
physics.
happen for the humans to like make. There's also a section where like Dasha, like the burly detective guy, is like puts together a bunch of the puzzle pieces, and he's like, you know, there's been an attack on scientists and people are trying to move towards more primitive stuff, so like someone's controlling all this. Like he basically lays it out like that.
Yeah.
And my interpretation is that like the Trisolarans are using some like advanced warfare to like massage human civilization so that they'll like be ready for their arrival.
Yeah, no, that is exactly what it feels like.
Yeah. Or it's all simulation in there. They've already arrived, maybe. I don't know. Who knows?
Oh, I think some of them have already got to be there. If it's not Han, if he's not.
It's so funny that it never occurred to me that they are aliens, like Shin Yufei and Pan Han.
Well, I'm pretty sure he says explicitly they don't look like humans.
Right.
But I was like, why? If I'm an alien, I lie. You know what I mean?
No, Mac, but aliens always tell the truth.
Aliens and fairies always tell the truth, except they don't have to.
Yeah, I wonder if these aliens are like allergic to ash wood or something like that.
And what's the other one that's fake?
Oh, it's iron, but that's also
Iron.
fake. You know?
Right.
It's so funny.
So what do you think is better, Danilo? The last book you read or this one?
I like this one a lot.
Oh, that's good.
It's funny. My partner is currently reading A Court of Thorns and Roses, and she hasn't read a book in a while.
Oh no!
But
Welcome back, idiot.
She's having a lot of fun, but also
okay.
She's having a lot of fun because she hasn't read a lot of book, and this is true. It's very easy to read and easy to follow.
You know, Danilo, if you recall, you hadn't read for a time, and the first book you read back was Mistborn.
That's true.
And so it could be happening to your partner in real time.
Well, also she's enjoying it, but with the caveat of, at some point, she's like, I was reading and I literally said aloud, "Well, that's convenient." So it's like she's like aware it's like a book.
Right.
And she's like, yeah, the romance kind of comes out of nowhere. And she's like, okay, whatever.
Oh, it doesn't come out of nowhere. He eats a plant or something.
Oh, and she solved the riddle too. She's like, I was like falling asleep last night, and she was like, is it love? And I'm like, that's a good guess. So that's very funny. A little awesome. ACOTAR follow-up for all our listeners there.
There might be an ACOTAR or a Mistborn follow-up at every episode. We've added a new book to the lexicon of things we don't really love here.
There's my partner's sister-in-law gave her a hard copy of the second one, so I really have no excuse not to read it. No. It's literally, within 30 feet of me at all times.
Well, hey, it's content.
It is content.
What if he logs into the 3-body problem and there's another planet 4-body problem? What do you think about that?
I think that would be very funny.
Yeah, it just keeps happening.
It's 5-body problem.
It's the quad Solarian Empire or whatever.
I think that's every book in this trilogy. It's 3-body problem, 4-body problem.
4-body problem. Where's first body problem, second body problem?
That's like how Hollywood would name the movies. Like they wouldn't care what the books are named. They'd be the 4-body problem without any regard to what it's about. Oh God, did you see 5-body problem?
It was bad and slow.
And they solved it?
That's all well, they solved it in 3, so I don't know what the fuck is going on. Yeah, that's all I have to say. I'm excited to see what's going on. I'm excited to meet an alien for the first time.
And we're thinking we're going to read them for the very first time. And I think we're going to be reading this whole trilogy because, we've both heard really good things about it. And so
apparently they just get better.
Podcast for a little bit. Yeah.
So...
And then, maybe we'll watch the show and do a little comparison. And...
Oh, I would very much like to because it's pretty different.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
I would very much like to do that. The next thing you know, we're going to be reading Fallout Wattpad fanfics because technically they're books, and then we're going to watch the show and compare.
Now, Mac, have you been doing a backup recording?
I have.
Okay. I realized I forgot to hit record on Riverside.
No, not to worry. I've been recording.
That's not going to happen again.
Oh, that's all right.
Oof. All right. I've been recording as well. So we didn't lose it. That's why we do that. Because I was about to hit stop recording, and I was like, it says start. Oh, my God.
A cursed episode, listener. A cursed episode.
All right. We'll call it there. I'm sure I can find some natural cutoff based on what we said earlier.
I mean, we can do an outro.
Okay, let's do it.
We gotta do the.
Oh yeah.
Let's leave all that in.
My power went out. I forgot.
I think that's apropos.
All the trucks in the world.
That's a 3-body problem.
Trucks, power, record.
Oh my God, a TPR. Ladies and germs, thank you for listening. Thank you for solving the TPR problem with us today. If you want to talk to us about how Isaac Newton does a weird sword fight in the 3-body problem, then you can email us at hardcoverhooligans@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram. Hardcoverhooligans is the username. Please leave a 5-star review or 4.5-star review if you want to make it look like an honest review. And if you have a book recommendation feel free to send it in the review. If the review is funny, we'll read it.
And yeah, the way podcasts get listeners is word of mouth. So if you know anyone in your life who might like these shows, please let them know. Also, I would like to let you know that you are currently in a simulation where I am trying. We're trying to test out how to, make sure I don't fuck up this podcast.
Yeah. So this is thank God we're not really recording, and I'm logged into a browser-based Flash game right now, so we don't have to worry about that. Okay, stay hard, everybody.
Stay hard, everyone. See you next time.